Hello everybody, welcome to a 10 biggest takeaways from the Kabam crash post. Yes, this is kind of a condensed version of a longer video that I put out earlier today, but I just wanted to do that because there's a lot of things, but also there's specific things which I think are important to take note. Please go and give a full read to the post as it is quite extensive and there's a lot of detail to it. First of all, Kabam admit failings to the superior Banquet Crystal and the fact that even though it was better than the greater Banquet Crystal of last year, it still didn't meet with the expectations of players, especially when you look at something like the offer that you get from the superior Banquet Crystal, you know, the one that pops up now and again for 300 units and you get a lot of really good stuff. In fact, in some cases and most cases, it's best to spend 300 units there than it would have been for the event. But granted, that does take away from the fact that the Realm event largely tops up that. So it's a bit of a weird point, but it's a relevant point. And Kabam even admit to they probably got the superior Banquet Crystal wrong. Especially with previous years where they've given information like really far in advance to give people informed decisions of what they want to do with the event investment wise. The second thing is the banquet tickets. Kabam admit a little bit of failure with the banquet ticket system, how that was put out, the amount of points you got, and also who would benefit from those particular points. Also the spending side of things as well, how much people spent on them to what they got back as a result, how far they climbed up the ladder. And that's something I think Kabam need to learn on in the future if they put out something like this. Kabam make a big point about inflation. One thing that bothers me or bothered me about the banquet events year on year is the increase of base level unit investment to how far you climb up the milestone, which is something that is still very much going to be an ongoing problem. Kabam say that because of the state of the economy within the game, because players are able to get more units and because people aren't spending units on revives and health potions, opting to save them, then it means that they have to make things more expensive because people have more units, therefore can spend on them. It's not exactly a brilliant way to describe it, but that's from Kabam's perspective looking at the game. Yes, getting units is a little bit more easier based on certain things. Super daily events helped out massively with that. We've covered that on the channel. But is it a fair thing? And largely, I'd say the answer is no, but to Kabam, they say that it's kind of like how they see it is fair that they can increase the cost for baseline investment to what you get out of it, and that'll be something that is just an ongoing basis. So when I do predictions, I'm going to have to always think about the extent of units to get to milestones at the final point, and then add on about 10k more to represent where we're going to be year on year, which isn't a nice thing, but unfortunately it's a very real thing within the game. This is a very differing thought process from, like, say, how you look at it, but you know, thoughts on this particular point in the comments. Something that's going to rear its head a lot of the time is spending in game. Whether you like it or not, spending is such a huge factor to this game. It keeps the game running. You know, we wouldn't have had this game last as long as it has done without excessive amount of spending. It is Kabam's most successful game. It is something that is always going to be an ongoing thing. People will be excessively spending to grab what's, you know, 214k. What was it for 3 or maybe 4 7-stars at rank 4, like it's an excessive amount of spend. And Kabam have to put together like how much you spend versus what you get out of it, where it takes the people that spend as to where in the future the economy has to work with you, me, non-spenders, catching up with these particular players. So there is a fine line with this one. It's a bit of a scary situation, and we'll have to see year on year how the Kabam economy is balanced for you to catch up with said people. But I don't think Kabam were really prepared with the extent of people would go to spend in order to get what they got back from it. And Kabam weren't willing in 2024 to put out a very spicy crystal, so I wonder what they could do for 2025 when it comes to, like, you know, acquisition of high-end resources. There was a lot of free things in December, and I think Kabam were a bit upset with the fact that people took away the disdain for the banquet event versus what was given back for the 10-year anniversary, the 10 free 7-stars. I think a lot of us do remember that, and that's great, but the problem will always be, because you go after the Cyber Weekend to something like this, there is a lot of player fatigue. So what players' individual frustrations are going to differ, like whether it's the SBC being a problem. Mine was the milestone investment of units you had to invest in, a little bit of the SBC, because I don't want to spend 300 units to get 5,700 tier 6 class catalyst fragment crystals, fragments from those crystals, but also look at the unit investment as to other things in game, as to I have to make a choice of where my units go, which was a 2023 problem and a 2024 problem, depending on what you wanted to actually get out the event. So there were people that liked the event and disliked the event based on what was either the crystal, based on what they liked about the crystal, didn't like about the crystal, the realm event, or the milestones that were climbing for it. And as Kabam won't be giving out much in the way of rewards this year because there's no 10-year anniversary, they're unlikely to give out the 10 free 7-stars. there could be a good allowance for budget to then go into an event like the 2025 Banquet event and make it a bit better, more spicier, and therefore more interesting to players in order to acquire something fun that those that didn't like it will get something good, and those that were okay with it will probably feel like, okay, but it's another cool year of stuff. Was the Banquet event overhyped? Can I even say, like, did we overhype the event? Clearly for some of you, we did. I would say Kabam did. They might have unintentionally done it based on the Banquet tickets. If you go into game right now, and especially under deals, there are chase resources in the spending deals for Deathless Champions. Kabam hyped Deathless Champions to get, otherwise you won't want to get them. The same way if you dangle a carrot in front of you and you're like hungry, you're going to go and bite that, aren't you? You're not going to bite it, let's be brutally honest. But by putting Banquet tickets in place, what it meant was everybody was going out to chase them because they thought at the end of it they would be getting something that was of worth. Whether or not it's points, whether or not it's something good in those crystals, but maybe there are a chunk of people that didn't feel that they achieved anything as a result of spending their money, but also spending their time to acquire those items, which they hyped those tickets over a large space of time. Also, there was an advisory committee which was put in place to test out, I don't know, sentiment, feedback, structure. Now, I don't know if these people represent the full community of a whole based on where the standings are. Of course, this is an internal thing, and companies will do things and put it out to the public. There's no say really from the public. Like, if the, I don't know, flavor and taste of Coca-Cola is changed, then you don't get a choice of like how the taste is changed. Like, they're going to put less sugar, more sugar, change some kind of recipe with it. You don't get a say. You just get given it. So not a lot of companies do run it past like a, taste. Yes, they do a taste testing, but largely it's a company decision of how they put out the advertising, marketing, or offers and things like that. So will this change in future to have a wider scope? I don't think so. Is this something that Kabam do internally? Yeah, but it was interesting to know that there's a committee that were our advisory committee, and of course the head honchos involved with how this is all of course put together. Just quickly, was this event a success? Yes, it was. It was a very much big success for Kabam. Whether or not you like the fact or not like that fact, it's good, especially for the future development of the game, as to have community that came back to play, especially for 10 years of the game. So there's a little bit of positivity there with that. If you liked it or not, this was a transparent bit of feedback. It came in 3 to 4 weeks earlier than Kabam Crash said it was going to. There was a lot of things to agree with. There was a lot of things to disagree with. There's some stuff that I think people that had a complaint may not have got the full validation of why Kabam did what they did. For those that liked it, I think they were just chill with it. And it was just a really cool, transparent response. Some things I agreed with. And I was like, okay, cool. At least a little bit of hope that the SBC, if the SBC comes in this year, could be addressed and made better. But not when it comes to faith around certain things like unit investment as to what you get back from it. But look, it is what it is with this. Also, a final note for me, like there's 2 comments that encapsulate what this event has been about in the response. Crashed always brings insight, candidness to his post. Even if you disagree, you have to admit that he is honest and does his best to openly communicate. I personally really enjoyed the Banquet event, but also understand why others did not. It's not my place to say how other players feel about especially when they're spending their hard-earned cash. When it's done constructively, I think the forums are a really valuable avenue for communication about strengths and weaknesses in the game. One thing is true, if you are taking the time on the forums, you love this game. I think we all want it successful for years to come. I agree. And finally, what Chuck puts, Crash post pretty much confirms my thoughts about after the Banquet. Spend a bulk of your units on Cyber unless you aren't at the latest progression. You know how the Banquet will be going forward. You have now seen the thought process of the event plan accordingly. And that's it. That's the final point to rest on. If you didn't like the Banquet event, then restructure what you're focusing on. It's probably going to go Cyber, if anything. There is some positive takeaways from it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that things are going to get better in the future. If you've got 15k to 20k units, and I think you're going to need 20k units based on the thought process from Kabam Crashed and the economy, then you'll probably need that for Banquet event this year. If you want to do that, do it. If you don't. I will not be saying save your units now for the Banquet event, because I don't know, and I don't know whether or not this will tick everyone's boxes. Cyber Weekend deals will likely do that, maybe have some leftover units for the event. It's completely up to you, and that's been it. Hopefully this is done in a more time efficient way than the video I did previously. Sorry if that was long. Hopefully this helped and was a bit more constructive with a few points that were relevant to this, and whether you like the event or not, we'll have to see what happens this year. That's going to be me, last video, I promise, on the Banquet event 2024. Check out some other content. Signing off now. Have a lovely day and goodbye.